Welcome back to our YouTube channel, The Book Digest. In today's episode, we're diving into a powerful and practical summary of The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien.
All right, let's start with something you can actually feel. Imagine this. You're an American soldier in Vietnam. Depending on what your job is, you could be hauling up to 90 pounds of gear on your back. I mean, that's a heavy load, right? And that's exactly where Tim O'Brien kicks off his masterpiece, with the sheer, grinding, physical weight of war.
But O'Brien flips the script on us almost immediately. He makes us ask a much deeper question. See, it's not really about the rucksacks or the weapons or the food. That's not what's truly weighing these guys down. The real burden? Well, it's completely invisible.
And that right there, that's the absolute heart of this book. O'Brien goes through, almost like an accountant, and just lists out everything the men of Alpha Company are carrying. And what he shows us is that war isn't just carried on your shoulders, it's carried deep inside your soul.
So O'Brien's lists of physical things, they're not just about the standard issue gear, the guns and ammo, not at all. He mixes in these incredibly personal items, these little talismans. You've got Lieutenant Jimmy Cross, who carries letters from a girl named Martha. Henry Dobbins wears his girlfriend's pantyhose around his neck for good luck. Kiowa carries an illustrated New Testament. And poor Ted Lavender, he carries tranquilizers just to make it through the day. Every single one of these things tells you a story about the man carrying it.
But then O'Brien makes it crystal clear. All that physical stuff, it's nothing compared to the emotional weight. These guys are carrying grief and terror, sure, but they're also carrying this constant, gnawing shame. It's the fear of being seen as a coward, of not being man enough. And that's the kind of weight you can't just put down. It presses on them, always.
And you see this perfectly in what happens to Ted Lavender. 1 minute, he's there, the next he's shot and killed, just like that. And Lieutenant Jimmy Cross, he was daydreaming about Martha at that exact moment. So he gets absolutely consumed by this crushing guilt. He blames himself, thinking his distraction got Lavender killed. And in this incredibly powerful moment, he burns her letters. It's like he's trying to literally burn away the weight of his own failure.
Okay, so this focus on emotional weight, on guilt, it leads O'Brien to the book's biggest, most mind-bending idea. He basically argues that in a situation as insane and extreme as war, there isn't just one kind of truth. Nope, there are two.
So here's how he breaks it down. On one side, you have happening truth. This is the objective stuff, right? The facts, dates, details, what a reporter would write down. But then there's story truth, and that's all about what the experience felt like. It's the emotional core, the psychological reality. O'Brien's big claim is that to make someone truly understand the story truth of war, you might have to bend the facts. You might have to invent things. Why? Because sometimes what actually happened is just not enough to convey the real horror and the chaos.
And he really doubles down on this with this quote, which is pretty shocking when you first read it. He says, "A true war story isn't supposed to be a nice little moral tale. It's not there to teach you a lesson or make you a better person. No way." He says a true war story is messy and confusing and chaotic, just like the war itself. Its only job is to make you feel what they felt.
So what's the point of all this story of truth stuff? Well, O'Brien uses it as a tool. It's how he dives deep into the psychological wounds of war. The ghosts that haunt these soldiers long after they've left the battlefield. Let's take the death of Kurt Lemon as a perfect example. Okay, take one, the happening truth. What actually occurred? He was playing catch and stepped on a booby-trapped artillery round. Boom. It was sudden, it was random, and it was just a grotesque, horrible fact.
But O'Brien doesn't just give us that one fact and move on. No, he comes back to it. He retells the story, but this time he talks about the beautiful sunlight filtering through the trees where Lemon's body landed. He keeps circling back to this memory, looking at it from different angles. And he does this because that's exactly how trauma works in our minds, right? It's never just one simple story you can file away.
And this trauma, it creates this terrible isolation. Lemon's best friend, Rat Kiley, writes this incredibly raw, heartfelt letter to Lemon's sister, trying to tell her what a great guy her brother was. And you know what happens? She never writes back, not a word. And how could she? The grief these soldiers feel, it's like a language that civilians just can't speak. Her silence just screams out that massive, unbridgeable gap between their world and ours.
And that feeling of being totally cut off goes hand in hand with survivor's guilt. There's this awful scene where another soldier, Kiowa, drowns in a disgusting sewage field, and the guy who was with him is just eaten alive by guilt, thinking maybe, just maybe, he was responsible. It doesn't even matter if it was objectively his fault. The feeling is real, and it's a brutal burden to carry. The simple fact that you're the one who got to live.
But here's the thing. For all this darkness, the book doesn't just leave you in despair. Not at all. In the last part of the book, O'Brien finally pulls back the curtain and shows us why he's been messing with fact and fiction this whole time. And trust me, the reason is incredibly powerful. He shares this story from his childhood, about his first love, a little girl named Linda. She died of a brain tumor when they were both just 9 years old. And as a kid, he figured out a way to cope. He could keep her alive by telling stories about her, by dreaming about her. And then it clicked. He realized he could do the exact same thing for the men he lost in Vietnam. For him, storytelling is a way to bring people back. It's an act of resurrection.
So in the end, you realize these stories aren't really for us. I mean, they are, but they're for the dead. They're for Kiowa and Kurt Lemon and Ted Lavender. It's a way to honor them, to make sure their memories stay alive and real in the world. This completely changes things, right? Storytelling isn't just entertainment, it's a moral act. It's a way to carry the dead with you, not as this heavy weight of guilt, but as a living, breathing presence.
And that leads us to the book's final, haunting question. It's a question O'Brien leaves with us, forcing us to think about what truth even means. If a story can make you feel the truth, if it can put you right there in the jungle and make you feel the soldiers' fear, their grief, their love, then does it really matter if every single detail happened exactly that way? And that, right there, is the brilliant, unsettling, and unforgettable power of the things they carried.